Hello and welcome to Richardson's Rubicon, where the talk gets real and the questions get sharp. My name is John Richardson. Today's episode is a timely one. After months of near silence on the issue of independence, the SNP have finally broke cover, but only after a bruising by-election loss to Labour in Hamilton, Larkhall and Stonehouse. Now, with a cabinet reshuffle under John Swinney, the question on everyone's mind is, what's the actual plan for independence? Or is there one at all? While the SNP recalibrates, others haven't been sitting still. So the civic movements like Liberation Scotland and the campaigning arm Salvo have been quietly, and some would say methodically, working on a different approach to Scottish sovereignty. One that doesn't wait for Westminster's permission and could run in parallel to whatever it is the SNP ends up doing, and the other parties as well, or failing to actually achieve. Joining me today is Alex Thorburn, researcher with Salvo and Liberation Scotland. We're going to unpack what their plan actually involves, how it differs from conventional strategy as we've come to know it, and whether this civic route could represent a genuine path forward for Scotland's future. So, welcome to the show, Alex. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, John. Yeah,
jolly good. So, what is it tell me a little bit about Liberation Scotland and Salvo.
Well, Salvo started in July 2022, so it's not even 3 years old yet. But in that time, there's been some remarkable progress on our target of liberating Scotland. Salvo is the campaigning arm of the liberation movement, and one of the tasks they set themselves originally was to form an international campaign to take Scotland's case to the UN. And Salvo currently has about 10 or 12 teams working away in the background, and each one of them is an essential element of the whole. It's amazing that all these people from all over Scotland and abroad are working together to bring our freedom to reality. This research team that I work alongside has been working away and discovering an amazing amount of stuff and helpful information that people would not imagine you would find that material. Places like the House of Lords and the House of Commons libraries, for example. Our Freeports and Special Economic Zone team has been all over Scotland setting up meetings to inform the public of the dangers of Freeports and the sale of our land and our resources. And a small team has been working for 2 years to set up Liberation Scotland and met every week to get that off the ground with a national election of Liberation Scotland members to form the Liberation Scotland Committee. That committee formed a secretariat to undertake the logistics of the international campaign that is now beginning to bear fruit. As we have partnered with an organisation in Geneva, a human rights organisation, Justice pour tout international, Justice for All International, or JPTI. It was on our behalf that JPTI sent the advance notice of our case to the C24 committee based in Geneva. And that C24 committee is the UN committee that deals with decolonisation. And we'll be presenting a full case in the next couple of months. In fact, we have a team there now working and meeting with people and meeting with the media, etc. over the New Year.
So let's just rewind a little bit. You've got this organisation, but it sounds like if you've got 20 teams, I mean, that's quite massive, isn't it? It's quite a big organisation.
10 or 12 teams.
10 or 12 teams, but still big. Yeah. So roughly how many members have you got?
Well, in Salvo, that's the campaign arm, it's about 8,000. And we're getting on 20,000 in Liberation Scotland.
Right.
Because you join Liberation and you have the option to join Salvo if you want to do a wee bit more of campaigning. We're talking about campaigning, and we're not talking about getting out and going around doors, etc. Not even just talking to your neighbours or your friends about Liberation Scotland is campaigning in a way.
It's campaigning, yeah. That's brilliant, yeah. So you can basically dip in as much or as little as you want, really, whatever time you can afford, and however much exposure you want to give to that.
Well, yes, that's right. I mean, the teams are some are administration, some are research, some are finance. They all come together and they don't work one without the other.
Yeah, yeah. So it meshes quite nicely together.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Oh, we have difficulties. Of course, we do. Every organisation with strong-minded people.
I wouldn't expect anything less. So okay, so you mentioned the UN. So what's that all about then? You did say the C-24 and things like that, but just in layman's terms, what's going on?
Well, the research that we've been doing is all about the decolonisation of Scotland. We say we have been colonised, and we've we've undertaken a lot of work on that. Professor Alf Baird, as well, with his book Dún Hodden and his socio-economic determinants of Scottish independence, all give a story that comes back to the fact that we have been colonised. And the markers that we sent along with the advance notice it described that exactly how we don't have our own government, how we've been over the years been subjugated, dominated, and our resources have been stolen.
Yeah, I mean, examples would be the fact that it's Scotland's a huge generator of energy, wind turbines, hydro, all sorts of stuff like that, renewables, and yet we really don't see the benefit of it. And a lot of it has been sold to foreign national companies, hasn't it? Really, but we don't seem to see the benefit of it in Scotland. In fact, we pay the highest energy prices in Europe.
That is 100% correct. It brings me to mind a speech I gave back in 1979, just before the general election, when I said that the Scotland's oil can do one of two things. And, it can help alleviate the poverty that we suffer in Scotland under the Union, or it can prop up the failing English government in Westminster for the next 50 years. I wonder which one of those two happened.
It sounds like option B they went for, doesn't it? So another example would be, I mean, what would be another example of colonisation? We've got the reserved powers, which really deny, like foreign embassies and things like that, foreign affairs. We've got no legal rights, as it were. And one of the big ones, I think, would be the fact that we can't even decide on our own referendums.
Yeah, that's 100% correct, yes. At least we are restricted by Westminster under the Scotland Act when we have to go begging for a Section 30 order. Well, Salvo and Liberation will not be begging for any Section 30 orders because that's for political parties to do. Now,
right, you're not a political party.
No, that was the first question I asked when I went to my first Salvo meeting. Are you intending to become a political party? And Sarah said, no, never. I said, that's fine, I'm in. Because I would never ever join that again. And apart from that, John, political parties cannot follow the route that we're taking to the UN. It has to be a liberation movement, not a people's movement, a liberation movement.
Interesting. So, tell me more about this plan that's going on with the UN at the moment. What steps need to be taken, and whereabouts are we on this at the moment?
Well, as I say, the research has all been done, and we presented what we call an advance notice to the C-24 committee that deals with the UN decolonisation on the 7th of March. And that lets them know that we were presenting a full case later this year before the meeting of the 4th committee, which is in October.
Right.
The C-24 will have a look at our case and present. They look at it and then present it to the fourth committee. The fourth committee will then also look at it, but won't do anything with it other than present it on the agenda for the plenary session at the General Assembly in December. Hopefully, unless, of course, there are any unforeseen circumstances along the way.
Right. So this will do a number of things, actually, won't it? This will raise the issue of Scotland's sovereignty on the world stage, on the international stage, right? And it will also provide another pathway beyond the Section 30 pathway that we seem to be stuck on doing with the political parties, which, they've got to try it, haven't they? That's what they've had to do, but they're just getting constantly snubbed by Westminster.
Yeah, well, we have pretty well exhausted the democratic process within what they term the UK. We feel that further requests for referendums are just going to be snubbed. Well, we were just told very recently, that the current Prime Minister would never allow another referendum. So,
he said not in his lifetime or something, didn't he? Yeah.
Talking about the SNP, ALBA, ISP, any other body that wants to be a political party, that's fine. Go on with the work you're doing. We want to follow another route, and we have within our own ranks, of course, members from all the political parties, and a lot from no political party at all.
That's interesting. Well, it's got to be for a civic movement, I suppose, a liberation movement, yeah. So are there any stumbling blocks at the moment? I mean, I've heard that basically you need to sort of have like a sponsor country to get mentioned. Is that right? And have we got one yet, or are the plans or workings in sort of progress for that?
That is happening exactly now over in New York. We have Craig Murray as our ambassador over there, attended the C24 meeting on Monday. He's already met with several members of the C24 committee. There are 29 of them, by the way.
All right. Wow.
He's also met with ambassadors and permanent missions at New York, and preparing media events over the next few days. And it's been extremely well received by everybody, very interested in the case. Very, very interested in the case. So I don't see any problem at all in picking up one sponsor country, and that's all we need. I should say one sponsor state.
One sponsor state, yeah. So, right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop in the live chat the number. There's no number. It's a link for people to join the show and ask any questions, Alex. So whilst I do that, there'll be a little video playing, and then we'll pop back on live, and then we'll carry on with our chat. Is that okay?
Fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Do that then.
You can now call into the show. Use the link in the show chat. You'll be queued and have a private room with John and the other guests. And before you know it, you'll be live on the show. Make sure your optional camera and necessary microphone are ready. Use headphones if you have them. Be clothed. We'll see you soon. Click that link now.
Well, there we go. So be clothed. Anyway, we don't want any accidents on the show, you see, so I put that in. So what would be the next steps, really? Is it just waiting for this sponsorship?
No. There's still a lot of activity going on, John. Once our team comes back from New York, and we'll get the full result of that within the next few days, that's got to be looked at, analysed, how we can use all the information to the best advantage of Scotland. In the meantime, we have a team preparing to go over to Geneva around about the 25th of this month to the Human Rights Council meeting there, which is more my field. And we will be over there for a few days. We're hoping to arrange a side event over there to invite delegates, ambassadors, or whoever else happens to be around there to come and talk to us about Scotland and its presentation of the case to the UN.
Wow, that sounds like it's full steam ahead, really. So, right. So, can we talk a little bit then about the claim of right and some of the history of that and what that actually means to the movement, the liberation movement?
Oh, well, one of the claim of right, 1689, the principles behind it are really part of the basis of the Scottish Constitution. And it was actually, wasn't passed by the Parliament, it was passed by the Convention of the Estates, who have the right to govern when Parliament's not called. It was basically to get rid of James VII as one of its main purposes, but it also reasserted that Scottish sovereignty, at the same time the sovereignty of the people. And that's where things differ very much from the sovereignty in England, which belongs to the monarchs through Parliament. So the sovereign people of Scotland are the ultimate authority in this country.
So, what does that mean in real terms?
Right. Well, what happened with the claim of right was that, firstly, as I said, it gives the historic right of the people of Scotland to assert their sovereignty and their rights, and the right of the people to declare various acts of government unlawful. And some of them could include claim by government to have an absolute power. In other words, taking the sovereignty from the people. And that was protected. Some interesting ones, giving gifts or grants without the permission of the convention or government or parliament. Imprisonment without trial.
Mm-hmm.
Or charge, granting personal protection from civil debts such as taxes, interfering with the legal process in order to attack or punish political opponents, and preventing a protest or petition, or criminalising protesters or petitioners, and the right to overturn the unjust rulings of the Court of Session and to declare rulings unlawful. The penalty for violation of the liberties of the kingdom is forfeiture of power or the right to govern. So they had the power. They had the power of what they would say in Switzerland is recall, and
Right.
and they actually mentioned it in the Treaty of Union. The claim of right is actually mentioned in the Treaty of Union. It's a fundamental part of it. Unfortunately, they only want to adhere to part of it, i.e. the religious part of it, not the rights that are conferred on the people of Scotland.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but the whole concept of the limitation of government power, parliamentary legitimacy, an independent judiciary, protection against arbitrary power, and of course constitutional remedies are all embedded in our modern human rights instruments.
So it's quite ahead of its time, really.
I think the best idea would be the claim of right. I'll kind of quote from what Sarah Sollers actually said when she said, "Why does a 300-year-old act and a condition of the Union matter today? It matters because the claim of right sets out the Scottish Constitution. It matters because it tells us why we hold certain values so dear. It matters because it provides an opt-out from the Union if this government, any government ruling in Scotland, violates the principles of the claim of right. It matters because it empowers our Convention of the Estates to reinstate civil rights and freedoms, to act as an ombudsman over any elected government, and to ensure that the principles of the Scottish Constitution are upheld and to protect the people from injustice, hunger, inequality, austerity, and desperation being visited on them by the powerful, the wealthy, the privileged, and the greedy. It must evolve to the kind of world and the kind of nation we have the right and the power to choose and to create for ourselves. And I think that's a really powerful statement.
It is a really powerful statement, and it really chimes with present day, doesn't it? So, that is excellent. So, when that, tell me more about the claim of right and the way it was kind of subsumed with the union. The Union Treaty. I can't even remember what it's called. The Treaty of Union. Because it was it was the crowns, wasn't it, coming together, and one was not quite brought into the fold, and the same thing happened with the parliaments, didn't it? So, can you go into that in a little bit of?
Yeah, well, that was
for a simple man like me.
That was supposedly the idea, but the sovereignty of the people of Scotland, in Scotland, belongs to the people, as I said earlier. In England, it belongs to the monarchs through Parliament after the 1688 Bill of Rights. So the two were irreconcilable, really. How do you join two together? Such different concepts. And they had tried several times in the past before the actual Treaty of Union was agreed in 1706. They tried several times, but they couldn't do it. So what happened was that they just subsumed us into the English parliamentary democracy that they had there, i.e. The monarch and parliament are all powerful, and the rights of the people of Scotland were just pushed aside. Because you may not know that the English Parliament at that time had a Triennial Act, and they decided that the previous election was 1705, which meant they didn't have to be re-elected until 1708. And for this new supposed Parliament of Great Britain, the MPs in England didn't want to stand for election in a sort of a mid-term. So they prevailed upon Queen Anne, and Queen Anne stated that the MPs, the English MPs that are there now, would be the new representatives of the Great Britain Parliament, in the Great Britain Parliament. So they didn't have an election. They just carried on their own sweet way and co-opted 45 MPs from Scotland and 16 peers.
Right.
Nothing changed for England, but everything changed for Scotland.
Yeah, exactly. So Scottish Parliament basically got, or whatever it was called at the time, got dissolved, essentially, right? And then basically there was no joining. There was just here you go, chaps, we'll have a few of you, and we're going to outnumber you. And it's not really a union at all. It's like we're the senior partners and you're the junior partners. Is that what you would say?
Oh, very much so. Very much so. Even as far back as James VI, or first for them, in the English Parliament on the 31st of March 1607, he stated that Scotland will be like the other northern shires, like Cumberland and Northumberland. And that's the way it was. Yep. And that prevailed because he was talking at that time about a perfect union, his perfect union. And Queen Anne used that exact same phrase. Now, I don't think she did. It was probably her courtiers that did it all for her. But, it just carried on. And they immediately brought in the Treason Act in 1708, basically because we had the powers to remove the king and actually execute the king if we wanted to.
Oh, wow.
That changed very quickly in 1708. They didn't let that sit long, and they invoked the Treason Act into Scotland.
Right.
And they promised the mint would carry on. No, that was gone. They promised the laws of Scotland, the legal profession would continue. Well, that didn't continue very long either before the House of Lords became the ultimate authority for appeal. the monetary system changed. Oh, everything changed for Scotland. Nothing changed for England.
Yeah. So that can't really be a union at all. That is
Well,
just...
It never was a union. It's been a fraud that's been perpetrated on the on Scottish, English people, the world, and especially the UN. I mean, in 1954, just after the Second World War, many of the traditional colonies of the Empire and other European states wanted decolonisation, and that's what happened. But at that time, questions were also being asked, well, what status has Scotland within this union? So there's a bit of a panic going on. So they set up a royal commission, which in those days used to be a way of kicking a subject into the long grass. But they did in 1954 and basically stated that Scotland entered as a voluntary partner, not a dependency. Well, a dependency is another word for a colony. So that was the UK government fraudulently telling the world, and since then the UN and everybody else that'll listen, that there's a UK United Kingdom exists, and it never has.
So some people would say that the claim of right is just an ancient piece of paper. How is it relevant to anything today? Now, you've given a good explanation as to how it's actually relevant, in terms of what's actually happened and where we went from A to B. But how can we use that claim of right? But because I noticed that King Charles III actually quotes it when he was sworn in 2022. So it still exists, right?
It's still extant, yeah. Oh, yeah, it still exists. But he only quoted the religious parts about the preservation of the Presbyterian religion in Scotland. Nothing about the rights of the Scottish people being the ultimate authority and having sovereignty over him. Oh no, we didn't hear anything. We didn't hear anything of that. So he has not taken the full Scottish oath, the coronation oath. Therefore, he can never be King of Scots until he does so. I think actually I think one of our members sent him a request, asked him if he wanted to take the oath about a year ago, but we've not heard about that.
Wow, that's fascinating stuff. So, I mean, and it's serious stuff as well, because we're talking about, the serious harm that's been perpetrated over, centuries, really, whilst, resources have been plundered. And, I was getting into discussions recently on social media about the Gaelic language and all of that, and basically how that's been subsumed, although the Scottish government right now is obviously trying to bring that back and making efforts to bring that back. But that's just another example of what happens, isn't it, when a people get taken over?
Yeah, it happened in all the colonies. The best way to destroy a culture is to destroy the language, and they did. In fact, there were acts preventing the Highlanders, particularly, from wearing clothing, carrying arms.
Oh, the kilt stuff, wasn't it? You weren't allowed to wear the tartans and things like that.
In fact, there was a bill, I think it was in the House of Lords, to can't remember the name of it. So, but essentially, it was to get rid of the clans. But it got a third reading, but then it was dropped.
Right.
But it goes to show intent.
It does. It does. Yeah, definitely.
Destroy the culture. And of course, after the 45, what they called the rebellion, which was against the Union, by the way, as much as it was to restore the Stuart dynasty, very much against the Union. They brought in really strong powers to get rid of the clans if they could do it, and the genocide that took place at that time. When you read through the history and the actual accounts of the people themselves, don't listen to what historians tell you, because if you can get close to the event and see what's been written by people at that time who really knew what went on, it was a horrific experience, just as was the Highland clearances a wee bit later on.
Yeah, that's a very sad episode, isn't it? Because that was obviously that was that was genocidal, really, wasn't it?
Genocide. There's no doubt about that. Yeah, it qualifies as genocide under the UN definition. Yeah. Well, it qualifies in a lot of fronts.
Yes. So let's have a look at this. What's this? Moving on. So we'll talk about the Declaration of Edinburgh. Right? You remember us having a brief chat about that. So tell us a little bit about that and what that means.
Yeah, it's actually called the Edinburgh Proclamation. And that's what you sign up to when you become a member of Liberation Scotland, is the Edinburgh Proclamation. That was in September 2022, which was just before I joined Salvo. And basically, it's about the Constitution of Scotland, the fact that we've got enshrined in our Constitution from as far back as the Declaration of the Clergy, our Bros, the Claim of Right, the supremacy of the Scottish people over all other authorities of state. And that includes the Parliament and any monarch that may happen to be sitting up there at the time. And it was totally irreconcilable with the parliamentary sovereignty that still exists now in both Westminster and its executive arm at Holyrood. Let me see now. One statement at the bottom, for instance, to halt the eradication of our sovereignty, the abuse of our protected rights and the plunder of our territories and resources, and reaffirming our lawful authority, we echo the Irish Proclamation of 1916, and we declare the right of the people of Scotland to the ownership of Scotland and to the unfettered control of Scottish destinies, to be sovereign and indefeasible. The long usurpation of that right by a foreign government has not extinguished that right, nor can it ever be extinguished except by the destruction of the Scottish people. We, the signatories, will form the peaceful liberation movement of Scotland. We call on all Scots to join us in urgently calling the Convention of the Estates through a modern Scottish National Congress, or whatever it wants to be called, to defend and assert our rights and to end the abuses of a foreign government that now threatens our lives and very existence as a nation. And people that sign up to that become members of Liberation Scotland, and if they want to do a wee bit of campaigning in whatever form that may take, they can join Salvo. There's no cost to any of that. No charge, everything's free, and nobody is barred from being a member of Liberation Scotland, of course, unless it can be proved that you're acting against the Scots people. Yeah.
Of course, yeah. So just for the people who'll be listening to the audio version of this podcast, the website is liberation.scot. So liberation.scot is where you first of all go. And if you join there are links to actually go to Salvo as well. And I can't remember what the web address is for Salvo. I will just get it in just a second. It's salvo.scot. There we go. There's Liberation Scott as well.
Yeah, and speaking of the website, as we mentioned earlier on, we sent the advance notice to the C24 committee. Now, all that information is on there. All what we presented is on there. So it's no secret. If you want to know about it, go and take a look. It's on the Liberation Scotland website. And it's sectioned off because it's quite a lot of material that's gone through.
Yeah, a lot of reading. Great. So have we got anything else to say at all, Alex, do you reckon?
Let me see. Let's what we're going to move on to. Okay, we'll move on to what happened on the May the 17th, the conference, or the 3-day conference of the Scottish Sovereignty Research Group, where there was a Salvo had the afternoon of the Saturday, and as part of that, Professor Robert Black, KC, who is respected globally for his skills, experience, and judgment, spoke about Scotland and its position within the supposed United Kingdom. When he was first given the study, probably back, I don't know, end of January, beginning of February, he said he was highly sceptical because he followed the orthodoxy, i.e. that Scotland joined a union, etc., etc. That's a voluntary, yada yada. Anyway, after he'd gone through it and studied it a few times, he agrees with us that Scotland was annexed. Scotland was subsumed into the Crown of England. And what was it said? No, just to quote him, he said, "No conscientious and impartial lawyer can look at what happened in the first decade of the 18th century to the institutions of government north and south of the Tweed and reach the conclusion that the pre-existing states of Scotland and England both ceased to exist and that a new state emerged phoenix-like out of the ashes. The evidence, the facts on the ground, support no judgment other than Scotland ceased to exist as a state in international law and was absorbed into a still extant England, cosmetically renamed Great Britain. And Scotland's legal status today, more than 3 centuries later, is consequently not that of a partner in a union. Its status is that of a territory absorbed into a larger country, a territory with only limited self-government and with resources exploitable and exploited by the larger country for its own benefits and purposes." Of course, there was a lot more to his speech than that. That's just a summary.
But that's the general gist of it, isn't it? Yeah. That's it's quite damning, actually, isn't it? So,
well, it's an area where we've struggled for long, is to receive agreement from the legal profession in Scotland. They all seem to follow the orthodoxy, as Professor Black said.
Yeah, I suppose it's quite difficult for people who have lived their entire lives with the idea that it's a united kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland are equal partners. And then when you look at it and you think, well, what's devolution for then? And why are certain powers reserved? So some people will think, well, we're all part of one big happy gang. And then other people will be thinking, well, why are only some powers reserved and given out, and why aren't others? So there's that confusion there, I think, between the two states of mind, which is something that I think if you don't think too hard about it, you'll just rest on your laurels. But like that chap said, once you start thinking about it, then it seems pretty obvious.
Yeah, and as Professor Alf Baird will tell you, it's not just the legal profession in Scotland that's been gaslit over the past 3 centuries about this fictional union. And it's the people of Scotland as much themselves. And it's only when they realise their true status as a colony of England, and still exists as a colony of England, that things will really begin to change. And the message that we're putting out is being received well practically everywhere we go. But having said that, our message is not getting out because the mainstream media, for some strange reason, don't seem to want to cover the story. Now,
wonder why that is.
I wonder why that would be. Originally, they used to give out D notices, but now they say it's a voluntary thing for the media to decide on whether or not they cover the story. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I know all about D notices from my time in the past. So yeah, and it's not voluntary at all, is it? It's
No.
coercion. But there we go.
Can I perhaps go on to something a wee bit different?
Go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
Okay. I call it Westminster Backdowns.
Uh-huh.
Why did they back down? Okay, it's backed down from challenging decisions and actions taken in Scotland several times.
Yeah.
For example, the Pillar Box Wars in 1953, when QE2 was being used on Scottish pillar boxes. Well, of course, it wasn't QE2, she was QE1 as far as Scotland was concerned. And they called them the Pillar Box Wars because there was graffiti, and actually there was some were put on fire. I think it said one was bombed. Anyway, at the end of the day, they backed down. I'll get to the reason why at the end. Then in let me see, the dumping of nuclear waste at Mulwarker in the early 80s in Ayrshire, well, it wasn't, it was in the Galloway Hills, where Willie McRae was a leading figure against the dumping. They backed down on that. And the Strathclyde water referendum, have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard about any of this in all fairness.
The Tory government wanted to nationalise Scottish water and sewerage. So they created the three water companies. But they wanted to fully privatise them in 1994. And Strathclyde region held a referendum where 97.2% of the voters, that's i.e. 1.2 million, voted against privatisation of the water and sewerage, and there was a 71.5% turnout. Only 33,356 people actually voted against it. Now, the point about that is the fact that it was rejected by the people of Strathclyde. They backed off. The government backed off, and they not only backed off Strathclyde, they backed off the other two water companies that they intended to privatise as well. And finally, in 2017, opposition by the Scottish people to fracking, the Scottish government said it would not support fracking in Scotland, and the UK government backed off again. Now, there's a common thread behind all this. Sovereignty. If they had challenged this legally, then the issue of sovereignty of the people of Scotland would come up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, exactly. On each occasion, it would have come up. So they backed off.
Right. So they'll push to see if they can get away with it. And then once the resistance is noisy and too great or whatever, then they back down in case they have a legal challenge over sovereignty.
Absolutely. At least that's the opinion of many, shall I say. Not the opinion of everybody. Certainly my opinion.
Well, not everyone shares the same opinion, do they? So we'll be all living and singing Kumbaya if we did. But there we go. Well, do you know what, Alex? That has been absolutely fascinating. That has been an amazing sort of walk through the efforts that you and your organisations that you're a member of, Liberation Scotland and Salvo, are doing to work towards helping the sovereignty of the Scottish people become fully realised. And, if anyone does want to join them or have a look, I'll just bring up the ticker again. It's liberation.scot and salvo.scot that you need to visit to find out more information. Alex, I'm going to call it now. We've had no callers, but I'll package this up as a podcast and it'll be released to my millions of listeners. And we'll hopefully get the message out, even though we're not mainstream media. We'll certainly be there. And now that it's out there, it'll just be listened to whenever anyone comes across it. So it's always there. So
yeah, well, thanks for the thanks for the opportunity, John. And as you said, anybody looking for information or want to know what anything's all about the UN, just get in touch with Salvo or Liberation Scotland.
That's super. Right, I'll do the closing now, and I'll speak to you just after the broadcast. Okay, Alex?
Okay, bye now.
Riffing the Rubicon. The talk show at the end of its tether. This podcast was brought to you by a simple man. The website is at richardsonsrubicon.com, where you will find all social links apart from X. You'll also find the details of the next live show, which is usually on a Thursday at 9 p.m. UK time. There are many ways to take part on the show, from simply listening or watching, reading the show notes, leaving a voice note, emailing the show at john@richardsonsrubicon.com, arranging a fireside chat at a time of your choosing, becoming a guest, or calling in to the talk show during recording. You have no excuses, and we have absolutely no plan. Join in now. richardsonsrubicon.com